I don't know if this is a good question, but I will ask it. It's about if you talk about social coherence or the feeling that the world is on fire, seems to me to depend on how we deal with money. Much ado about money. You know, the economy and the question of how is dealt with money seems to ruin the world. Now, the connection to this work is it possible to give some teachings and to solve these problems? Or is there a connection between teaching and money?
So
it seems to be unclear.
Well, no, I understand, and at least that's how it feels here. I sense where you're coming from. I understand. Maybe let's clarify for myself and maybe perhaps for others. By money, do you mean money as what? As something that was invented at a certain point in time, as the currency for, let's say, distributing the goods, as a form of exchange of energy between one's capacities, abilities, and needs, right? Or are you talking about the way the financial system working today in our globalized world, where there's because money is not all. When we speak about financial system, money is only some form that some people who have a lot of money never hold money in their hands. There's no need, right? So what are we talking about here? Because money can also be and cannot be spoken outside of that understanding that it's a form of energy. It's some kind of expression. So maybe you can position your question a little bit sharper to what you feel that you want to raise here to our attention to, or maybe out into the open for seeking some maybe insights or understanding. Because I will be frank with you, I don't see money in itself being a problem, because at some point money, in the history of money, right? It's a fascinating history how money were invented, apparently in China, right? And what money was supposed to act as in the world. And in all ancient civilizations, when the world was not the way the world is now, because we live in a secular society, there was never a divorce, there was never a separation. This is why coins were always made in the most precious metal, right, in every society. Whatever the most precious metal was would be given to that what is known as monetary exchange. So it acts as some kind of stable value, but it wasn't just value attributed to how it's today linked. Let's say like the dollar used to be linked to gold, but that conversion of dollar to gold was terminated many decades ago. I don't remember how, but like maybe some of you might know that. Was it in the 50s or the 70s, right? Or maybe even before, even earlier, yeah, when it was no longer convertible to the gold, exactly. So before that, let's say dollar held that value. But what's the question? What's in the question? Like teaching and money, because I want to make sure I understand what exactly do you want to bring to question itself.
It's probably about how we deal with it. How money makes our minds different. How does it work inside of us? Inside. How is the value, seeming value of money forming our actions, our mind, our setup? When I think of money, I often think it's a possibility to motivate people, to motivate many people. And is it necessarily corrupting the relationships between us? There are some people who think necessarily if you deal with money, it will corrupt the relations between people. I mean, very directly spoken, you take money for this teaching. So there are many people who say spiritual teaching is impossible to be given for money. Maybe I can bring my question on that point to you.
Sure, that's why I've asked you to maybe.
This is a very clear point.
More precise, exactly.
I'm sorry.
So, no, it's absolutely fine. It's, you know, is that what the question then?
No,
can spiritual teaching be?
I mean,
sold?
Maybe it's one half of the coin
Okay,
of the question. I don't know. I'm not sure about it. There is another. The other half of the question is that I really have the feeling that the world is on fire because many people think of money in a way that they are corrupted in their heads.
Yes. No.
Okay.
Certainly.
It's getting a little clearer.
No, that's exactly what I thought that your question initially was pointing to. So whether this is with regard to spiritual setting, and so we'll touch up on this. Okay. So yes, there is this saying that a very well-known English saying that power corrupts, right? And absolute power corrupts absolutely. So, and then to that often what is added that if you want to know someone well, right, how they are in terms of whether these qualities of this or that being will be shaken, you know, and then give them power. And of course, power, whenever there is power, and if there's a sufficient amount of power, then money follows. Because this is also very well known. So the question here is whether money itself and the relationship, right, that why do we want money? The question of world is on fire, and of course it's so very clear why our economy is made in such a way that even if the fact that everyone knows that a single country like, let's say, size of Holland, in fact, it's a well known that I think going back to somewhere mid-90s, that Holland as a country can feed entire Europe in terms of its agriculture, in terms of its agricultural capacity. A size of country like Holland, right, can feed entire Europe in terms of, let's say, that how developed the agriculture is. Why is it then in the structure of the economy, the world's economy, nothing is made towards that what everyone, let's say, wishes in terms of equal distribution of this and that. That this fundamentally does not adhere to the way our current values that we have created together over a period of time, it doesn't happen overnight, is in itself an expression in consciousness. So this is a primarily step in understanding. Because if we just go straight into the, let's call it a blame factor, that why would those families, let's say, be interested in an open conflict somewhere, which we simply call war, is because during the war, there's a great demand for weapon, right? Weapons of any kind, of all kinds. The bigger is the war, the greater the weapon is required. So those industries that produce this weapon proliferate greatly or greater during an open conflict somewhere. Before that, and in fact, I don't need to bring this out into the open, everyone knows that many smaller conflicts, more containable conflicts, were masterminded in this part of the world, in that part of the world, so as to have a constant supply of that what is being manufactured somewhere. It's a simple thing, right? For example, you have a farm and you have fantastic cows and you produce a lot of milk, right? So you want people to drink that milk, right? So therefore it is in your interest that people do drink milk, right? So you're not going to go suddenly and will be uninterested in how the collective opinion and how people are in the families and how they are, let's say, oh, someone comes in town and says, you know what, cow's milk is not good for you. You all have to drink goat's milk. And oh, wait a minute, I have a cow's farm. I'm giving this example because it's easy to understand, easy to apply. So if people drinking milk in every family, you're doing well, right? Now, imagine that you are born into a family, right? Maybe 5th generation, I don't know, 10th generation, where people were making weapon. Not just automatic, real big weapon that needs to be blown, dropped from the aircraft, whatever, right? Highly sophisticated, because that also shows the development, the so-called progress. You're born. At some point, you graduated from your school, and your dad and come, son, sit down now. You are big enough to be a board member of this committee. This is a round table. This is we gather, maybe somewhere in Geneva, I don't know, Basel, I don't know, Switzerland, somewhere nicely. You may be from Arizona, for all I know, but that's where you gather, in beautiful climate, in safety and comfort of the place where you have maybe gathered for the last 200 years, I don't know. And you discuss this now. So it's your duty to keep the business going. So you have to what I'm saying to you, you need to flip that question. It's not about money. What is money? What is money? It's only a symbol that goes to provide someone with ability to live life they want, isn't it? Other than that, why do you need money? Money in itself, what are they, fantastic looking? Maybe ancient Greek coins look nice. But what, today's money? Really, there's nothing really special about it. So you're not going to pile the money up and just open and look at them you know? No, it's like you go somewhere, you know you have money and you can spend them. So that it's not about money, it's about objects. Objects, you know? And yeah, you can buy, and there's no need, there's no end at where you can say to me or I to you, at where it will become justifiable expense or justifiable purchase. For someone, it's giving kids a good education, having always enough, a big room, let's say a room for meditation, the holier desires, right? Maybe having enough so that one doesn't need to take odd jobs and kind of one can dedicate one life more for the service of community, for personal evolution, for creativity. But someone who has all that, let's say, just saying, for them it's maybe buying a Picasso or Van Gogh from an auction house, right? Where will be a line drawn, what is a justifiable desire and what is not? You see where we're going from here now? At what point, you see, at what point will you tell me that my desire to spend my millions on, let's say, a painting, sculpture, an object of art is not justifiable, right? Because the whole room is there and it will go. So I have to be quickly, you know, have to like keep bidding. It's not in the shop. These works of art never in the shop. They don't have value. Value is always estimated at what it might go for, you see? And then the competition begins. So where are we going from here? It's never about money, you see? It's how our desires express themselves. It's what gives us satisfaction. So I'm now referring this question all the way back to where I've started. When our life is not lived at the level of fulfillment at get going, it matters not how much we have or yet will have that will suffice. So therefore for someone, a bottom line is a real bottom line. It matters from whether it's $50 per month wage or $75 per month wage. Makes enormous difference. For someone, whether the piece is sold and being acquired at the auction house for 75 million or 105 million, it's only a matter of few millions, forgive me. But what a piece, look at it. I mean, what a piece. I mean, don't you agree it's worth every penny spent? Come on, give me a break. Let's change the conversation. What were you saying, darling? So it's like, at what point do we draw the line of what's justifiable? You see? And that point is always drawn there already, at the point where water finds its level. So if you were attentive enough to what I was saying earlier, if life lived at the level of bliss, then those who are in a position of power, you will come to that meeting, sit at that table, right? And your dad initiated you, introduced you. You are now not just a shareholder. You are now, my son, a part of the big gang. Okay, of course, language will be very different, maybe in French. Swiss French, you know, you're from Arizona, but you went through French school, my friend. You went to Oxford. You are going to tell Dad, I'm sorry, Father, I don't want to be part of it. Why? Because I embody different consciousness. What the fuck are you talking about, son? That's quoting the father. You will say, that's exactly what I said, Dad. The consciousness in me tells me that what we've been doing is utterly wrong, completely wrong. I don't need that, okay? I will do something else. So, but if you are insisting, then I will begin the process of dismantling your fucking factory into something else, okay? So that wars that are fought will be taken out, the energy out of them, because every world's conflict, every economic agreement, everything, the whole system ran on what? On a lack of coherence. Everything is run on scarcity, and that there is something is about to collapse and not enough. Constantly, you see? Constantly. They're telling you apparently there are too many Africans and they might gulp down Europe. White race of Europeans will be gone. All of the Teutonic race will be wiped out, will be completely milked, shaked with a very different kind of color, and you will no longer recognize your and things shape to come. But the fact is, Africa is depopulating. So all these ideas, all these people who come like, from this Bono singer, from all this like Tom, Dick and Harry, they go there, they try to bring stuff into Africa so as to genetically undermine the very code of the race. These talks are there, you see? But the fact is, it's a bollocks, it's a nonsense. It's not at all, there's no demographic explosion. No. Africa becoming depopulated rapidly. These are the facts. The world is messed up big time because of the lack of that what unites us together. And what unites us together? Not slogans, ideas, ideologies, social systems, social structures. It unites us only at the level where we are already united. No other level unites us more. You see? So when that level is touched, the son has the power to confront the whole committee, not just his son, just his father. He will walk out of that room and say, end of this story. Because different consciousness here now speaking. I don't care that I'm ungrateful son, I will do what my consciousness tells me to do. You see? But money, what's the money? Where is the money? What money? It's not about money. It never was. It was never about money. You see? It's about desires. Desires. And there's no end to desires. We want to live life to the fullness of our capacity. But where do we draw the line? Do we know where that line is drawn? No, we don't. Because that line cannot be drawn. Because it's always relative. You cannot say what desire is legitimate or not. But you can say whether you're happy or not, whether you're fulfilled or not, whether not getting what you wanted did not deprive you from that sense of equilibrium. Because if, and only if, we can reach that state when that critical mass begin to be reached, then new form of social structure begin to be born. It cannot be born because there's decision. United Nations gathered people, best minds of the time, gathered, sitting together, hot, heated debate, this and that, this proposal, this kiddo, that guy, coming up, these ideas. No, it doesn't work from like that. It works only from the internal level. Internal level where something then begins to be then experienced at the level where it's not implemented from above by social structure. That's how consciousness functions. That's a consciousness-based model. You see? But money is a symbol in itself. It's not an evil. Nor is desire evil. It's simply lack of that coherence. What is that coherence? It's when every single particle fires in the same direction. You see? Mason effect. You know the Mason effect? It's a conductor versus superconductor. In an ordinary conductor, all particles fire in different direction. And the Mason effect is when this superconductor creates this possibility when under the impact of waves, particles which are still carry the property of the wave, begin to fire in the same direction. So in other words, from firing in different directions, it's now become a flow. All of them flow in the same direction. That's what coherence in scientific terms. It is verified by so-called the Meissner effect. Google it and look into it. So when things begin to fire and everything then turn the quality of flowing towards, then it will find its way. It will find its way. It will begin to manifest in ways you cannot conceive in any other way other than how it will manifest, because it's now a byproduct of a qualitatively higher consciousness. It's not because this, okay, let's now change business, change industry. You see? So, but money itself, in itself is not a problem. Do you want me to touch up on the monetary exchange in terms of the spiritual work?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. So, it's very simple. And I have encountered these conversations many, many years ago. Many years ago. These conversations were like quite a subject of heated debates on forums and before the social media. I'm talking about blogs and forums, early 2000s, before the arrival of the Facebook, and you know, these conversations were already aplenty out and about. You know, so like, how can spiritual teacher have the rights to charge for what is universal knowledge, for example, right? This was often thrown. You know? There are simple two answers to that. First of all, in any given economic structure, right? Everything simply adheres to that. What is currently is a simple agreement, you see? So, in other words, if spiritual teacher to give spiritual teaching for free, because this is in, let's say, adherence to certain moral ethics, it is his duty, her duty, then someone in a society has to make sure that the needs of that teacher are met. Who is going to do that? In Western, a current economical structure, which is known as capitalism, there are no survived islands of feudal archaic structures anywhere to be found. Okay? None. There is no such thing like some Maharaja of, what's this area called in Freiburg? Huh? Breisgau Maharaj covered all the expenses of all yoga studios, and all of them are for free, you know, because the speakers and teachers who work, happen to be here, are lavishly, all their needs lavishly met by the generous patronage of so and so. See? None of that. No. So I'm not even going to go into like, oh, guess what? No. Now, another side of the response to that. But if you want to understand that traditionally speaking, spiritual teaching always commanded a very high degree of reimbursement. Very high degree. If only you read what the true term Dakshina represents, it will make you angry in a very different way. You will feel furious, unjust. You will feel, oh my God, what the barbarians, how dare they? But the term Dakshina is a very different term. There's no such thing as a ticket, set price. Very different way of how it is settled, you see? The term Dakshina is the payment that is established by the spiritual perceptor to whomsoever it happened to be in that role that they steadfast in a period, during the period of time. In the earlier days, the Dakshina could have meant that your daughter will come into my household and serve there. until you're able to repay. Or if you had, like, let's say, 200 goats, 100 goats will come to me. I'm just saying, you see? So this price on spiritual teaching, it's basically was always an arbitrary affair. And there is a big reason, and you will understand why that was, you see? And yet dakshina is something which you cannot not pay. Dakshina is considered to be, in terms of the dharmic understanding of that, where, at least as far as this culture we speak about, where all these yogic terms come from, is something which you must pay, you see? So for you, forgive me, for us, because I'm like you, I live in the West, for us Westerners, this is an incomprehensible concept. But I thought to mention that to you, so that all these some fancy ideas that somehow entered the heads of people some times ago, that spiritual teaching, because, and they give this name or that name, that teacher never charged, you know. I don't want to mention names now, because, but let's say this teacher, well, he taught from his home, he was comfortable, and he enjoyed, towards the end of his, like, let's say, career, he opened up the doors of his house, and people come and receive the teaching, and that was at the generosity, because he felt he's in that phase of life. He might even had some cookies and tea, chai served to everyone, you see, because he was wealthy now. Swami Lakshmanju, for that matter, was born into a very, very prosperous, successful family, and until the civil war broke in Kashmir Valley and he was taken by an American family to be saved into safety, he was known for throwing banquets to up to 2,000 people, where they will be fed, all of them. Of course, he didn't have to teach for money, you understand? So, and other spiritual teachers created oikuments. They created movements, huge amount of money in circulation, property. If your attention goes there and you get stuck on that level, okay. But let's not confuse here what is what, you see? Personally speaking, to me, this was never a matter of, I had greater difficulty to establish price as a young artist for a work of art than to charge for my, you know, whatever, the immersions, gatherings and everything. I have no problem at all. As far as I'm concerned, inside my headquarters, it's all dead cheap anyway. It's all not just affordable, it's very inexpensive way of how the teaching is delivered. But as a young artist, I had a great difficulty. How can I, this drawing is so dear to me. But for someone, it's for you, it's just a drawing. And I have hundreds of these drawings, right? So I'm supposed to sell you each of these drawings at the same price, because that's what the gallery would do. But for me, my heart isn't that drawing, my soul. There was a great difficulty back then, you see? So that had to be resolved at some point. I had to do the sacrifice. I had to listen to the advice. No, you're a professional artist. You don't want to sell that drawing? Don't. But you cannot distinguish here now. You know, it's a drawing and it's a drawing, same size, same material, approximately value should be given equal, you see? You cannot just say this is like, whoa, and that is just, you know, wrap it up, let me take it home. So if anything seeps in or through in this, then it's all yours for free. Never mind, I said it's all good, thank you. Thank you for a good question.